Thank you, Dan, for everything you do. I mean, we work with a lot of angel groups, and I have to say, Dan, you are a powerhouse. I mean, you get stuff done, you get organized, this is a good group, so congratulations. So we're very different than some of the other investments you've made. We are a biotech company. We don't have product. We develop a drug. Both Sue and I have been doing this for over 30 years each.
I started when I was 6.
And I'm really the old man in the room. But, so we appreciate you guys inviting us and even taking an interest in this investment, so thank you. How do we come to PIG and how do we get networked here? One of our networks, Larry Schreiber, who's in the South Jersey area with me, we met at Starbucks probably 7, 8 years ago. And through Larry's networks, kind of like what you guys have been doing, we arranged a bunch of angels together, and over the years we probably raised $7 to $8 million for multiple companies to which I was either involved with in the biotech space or knew about and helping to raise money. Both Larry and I have had 3 or 4 different exits from those companies, and so when I started Virion, Larry was the first investor outside of me and the founders in the company. We met PIG through James and Sam. Happens to be that James and Sam are very good friends with Larry. So Larry is the ultimate connector. If you would have been here, Dan, well, you would have had a field day with Larry. He's a great guy. So we're here. We're developing novel immunotherapies we call checkpoint modifiers, and our first program is for chronic hepatitis B. And Sue, feel free to jump in if you like. Any introductions, any comments? We are stuck on the slides, guys. Thank you. So, what is the opportunity? We have been working on this since 2018. Our lead program is at its major inflection point. It's very near term. We have been, since we last spoke to you, these things have accelerated on both the investment side and the pharma partnering side. And that pharma partnering side can be quite large, because the markets we're working in are very large. Chronic hepatitis B, believe it or not, infects 254 million people in the world.
And growing, guys. I don't think people like, oh, there's a vaccine, right? And the reality is that it's only as good as everyone in the world that requires it gets the vaccination. So in fact, sadly, the number of folks getting chronic hepatitis B is growing and increasing as we stand.
H.C. Wainwright calls this the largest untapped biotech market today. The addressable market, if everyone got drug, is over $450 billion. The conservative addressable market is about $16 billion, and it's growing again, as Sue mentioned. If you look at the checkpoint inhibitors, things like Yervoy and Opdivo and Keytruda, you see commercials for. We also work in those spaces. Look at the size of the markets now, $59 billion in 2025, and upwards of $230 billion by 2034. So right now we have this inflection point with several different opportunities, and we have need for working capital to keep things going while that's ongoing right now. So we have up to $4 million in discounted companies we can sell. We'll talk about that again in a moment towards the end. Thanks. So what is the problem? Your T cells are basically your soldiers of immunity. They're the ones that go find infected cells or cancer cells, and they literally destroy them and clear them. In a chronic disease like hepatitis B, patients are unable to generate an immune response. Their T cells don't work anymore. And there are lots and lots of people trying to find a solution. How do I get a T cell to work again? How do I take someone who's been infected for 50 years, who's never been able to mount an immune response, and get that immune response to work again? And you probably see many of these companies, CAR T companies, you've probably heard of allogeneic T cell transplants. They're very complicated, very expensive, require a lot of infrastructure. We approach the problem in a very different way. What we did is we basically took patients' own immune responses, and through our lead program, we were able to get patients to generate an immune response. And I'll show you that in a moment. Again, this is just sort of the overview of CHB, chronic hepatitis B. We told you about the numbers, but what we didn't tell you is 1 million people a year die from liver-related viral complications. So think about that for a second. 257 million people, 1 million deaths per year. Lots of drug companies, very big ones you know well. I told you the names. are working on this space and have spent hundreds of millions and billions of dollars here. Their drugs work really, really well. You can shut the virus off almost completely. Problem is, once you take the drugs off, it comes back. The reason for that is they've never solved the problem of getting patients' own immune system to be able to clear the virus. Without that, you won't be able to ever get a true treatment. Next slide. We're not a science project. We're not in mice. We've actually been in patients who have been infected since birth, 40 to 50 years of infection. And you can see those patients now across different studies. This is our single study. We presented data for the last 18 months or so from this study. And in May, we presented very compelling results that got a lot of pharma interested, even more than what they were. I can tell you now that we have new results from this same study that are even better. That has accelerated interest dramatically. You don't have to be a scientist here to understand down is good. What we're showing you here is that we can get patients' own immune responses to lower the virus particles to targets we don't even target. And you can tell you now that pretty much it's in everyone. So we believe, as do our advisors, that we may have solved at least the first part of the major problem, and that is getting people's immune systems to be reactivated and work against the virus. It's not just some, we will show it in November. It's embargo data, but we believe it works in everyone. Our advisors and world experts are calling this a foundational piece for hepatitis B. They're calling it the backbone agent to which other agents need to be combined with to get their responses.
And that's what Dan was alluding to, is the potential for functional cure for something that hasn't seen anything, not even anything new on this side for 30 to 40 years, actually. So we're thrilled about it, and again, thrilled that you're here and interested in it.
And we do it with an incredibly well-tolerated single shot. So in contrast to a drug called PEG interferon, who our liver experts here know, it's the only drug that actually potentially does what we're showing here. It actually does do it. We're the ones that's potentially showing it, but they actually do it. It takes them 48 weekly doses to see some people get responses. We see one shot that lasts for a year. We're seeing it pretty much everybody. Okay?
The other thing that's unique, and again, that kind of commercial, so when it's out there from a public health perspective, is again, it's an IM injection. It's like getting a flu shot. And those are the symptoms we're seeing on our clinical trial. But also, if you think, again, the ease and scalability of this for folks around the world is there. So again, the difference is it's an IM injection, just like a flu shot. So that we know that shots are taken all over the world and in the U.S. and everywhere for every winter season. So you can again see how this can really integrate cheaply and effectively across, not just here, but across the world as well.
So we want to make it clear, we don't say we have a cure. We say we have, at least right now, we consider the key piece that's been missing for most people who are in the space, to which they will need to make some matching alignment to get potentially the results that we want to see as a cure. Right? We are not going to take that to the finish line. It is not our corporate business model. It would cost enormous amounts of money, would dilute all of us. And our goal is to take the asset, get it to a partner who can do that, and then we get landmark payments, royalties, or even acquisition outright. And those discussions are going on now. Because quite frankly, the money is wonderful, and that's going to be great for all of us, but the public health and the implications are gigantic. If this actually works, we can get into larger studies. Think about the number of people this can impact all over the world with a single well-tolerated shot.
And it kind of gets at what Dan was saying too, about the devastating loss. We all have folks that we've lost due to cirrhosis or liver cancer. And so again, by eliminating or at least controlling this virus, this is the leading cause of liver cancer worldwide. So if you think of that also and frame that up, that also has a huge effect on all of us. We know someone that has liver disease or liver cancer related to a virus.
Next slide. So again, I think the only point of this slide is to say that we believe in our advisors now believe this is the backbone agent. And one of the world's experts called this the foundational agent for every kind of combination going forward. We're super excited. We've been doing this a long time, just antiviral and drug development. I can safely say, in my 30 years of doing this and running clinical trials, this may be the best first-in-human study I've ever been part of. When things work, they work, and you can see them work. And they're working in pretty much everyone, at least in this trial. And this is 34 people. Okay, it's not like it's an 8-person trial. This is 34 people. And it's consistent, and every time it's working. And things that do that usually do quite well as you get further along in development. Next slide, please. So, we have been incredibly active. Even since the first time we spoke with you, Dan, and when we did our board call and the stuff we take, it has accelerated, especially since we presented the data in May in Amsterdam. And now the data that we have will be presenting in November to share with our partners and people interested under CDA, and they've seen the data. It has accelerated things. We've had multiple calls with multiple people. So we're working on pharma partnering and BD activities. We have 2 banks engaged to work on that, either a license and acquisition of the asset or an acquisition of the company. One is the global company that is Guggenheim Securities. And then the other, because this is a very large problem in Asia, we have a Chinese-Pacific fund and group working on it. It's called Yalco Capital. And we have engaged several large Chinese farmers. You'd be surprised how large some of these farmers are. All the ones we're talking to are multi-billion dollars. The ones that are global and you would know about are very large. Multiple companies are under CDA, multiple companies are in diligence, to the level we're having team calls across multiple disciplines. So when you get a very large company, you're having calls with their teams in Singapore, Hong Kong, you're having in London, US, and we've had calls with multiple team members all at the same time now. So they're progressing. We also are parallel tracking, just in case those things don't happen, we can fund and keep the company moving with PCs and hedge funds. Those are moving as well. If you ask us, we believe the next path forward is probably going to be a license and or an acquisition. I can say that some of them are looking at acquiring the company as well. So these are so big, they just want to encompass the company. They don't want to have the IP lying around. They want to just roll it all up. So we're not at the term sheets yet, but we're getting pretty close. And also, just so you know, we are very active looking at other ways of proving this and trying to understand it. We're working with Harvard, we're working with groups in Toronto. All these major academic centers are very interested in trying to understand exactly what's happening. I can say this, the lead drug, PEG interferon, has been out for 30 years or so. No one has a clue how it works. We have some idea what's working right now, but all these people want to dig in and try and figure it out. Truth is, it doesn't matter, it works. And we'll figure out how it works after the fact. But if we have a large partner, we can do that. As Virion, it's very hard for us to finance to do that. Next slide, please. So we have several corporate and exit strategies. I've been in this company, I started the company in 2018. It took me about 1.5 years to get this out, so I've been in the company for quite a long time. Our early investors like Larry have been in since 2018. We are looking for liquidity. We're looking for investor return. We are trying every way imaginable we can to do that, and we're pursuing all those opportunities. As I mentioned, we think the key pathway here is pharma partnering and licensing and BD. Our goal will be to have a transaction, hopefully by the end of this year, papered up full and agreed to it in this year, and hopefully we'll close out the first part next year. The company is set up as our operating agreement. We have multiple pipeline projects, programs. If the lead program goes and the economics allow, we will dividend back to the investor base. And you're investing in the company, not just in the hepatitis program. We will use the funds non-dilutively to fund the next set of programs and kind of repeat the process. I actually think it's going to be the second point. I think it's going to be a licensing or an acquisition of the asset and or the company. I just think the kind of conversations we're having are large enough. And if again, it's going to come down to what are the terms and how does it work, what does it look like, is the economics make sense to do that? But our sense is from the people we're talking to that that's a possibility right now. And I can't ever say, because right now what we don't know is how many people are going to be bidding against each other. I think it's going to be a couple, which is going to be very good for us. And depending upon the economics, that'll dictate which path we go. We did talk about public offerings and IPOs. I can say that for biotechs in this economy right now, it is not possible. You're seeing very few IPOs going for biotech companies. There's too much uncertainty, it's unfundable, and the ones that are going forward usually have multiple hundreds of millions of dollars of funding going into that IPO. We're not at that position yet, but we have been speaking with our Chinese counterparts about maybe doing a Hong Kong listing if we can get a Hong Kong partner. So it's a possibility, but that's not an immediate thing. That's going to take a little longer if that's the path we have to go down. Next slide, please. So just again, to reinforce what our opportunity is, I think we're here. We spent years getting here. We've invested, our investors have put close to $24 million now into the company. You are getting in the, a lot of them in the 8th, top of the 9th inning right now. We are doing discounted comm units because we need to keep the runway going so we can complete these things. Once we have an investment or something along those lines, this will be cut off and we'll have to stop selling them just because we can't realistically do that when we have a term sheet for the rest of our investor base. So we hope you'll come join us. We think it's a great time. We're excited and I hope you will be too. Anything you want to add to? Happy to take any questions.
I think do we have 2 minutes?
If anyone has questions, go ahead. I don't want to cut you guys off.
Hey, I got a question. So when you're talking about the Asian Pacific, and we're talking about Trump in office, my buddy, and we're looking at the tariffs, is that affecting anything with the banking?
Yeah, great question. What it does impact is that our manufacturing and supply chain. People think we were clever like a fox because we did some things, like we manufactured here. So we've already proactively looked at that for supply chain. And our experience, we actually have that experience down with, during COVID was when we started manufacturing our first lot. So that's the big issue there. But we've been working, and with clinical drugs and clinical trials, again, there's FDA and you're under the same regulatory bodies, but the supply chain was something we've already mitigated with our plans and structures we put in place when we manufactured during COVID.
But
So that was a big thing.
I will add though, from a business perspective, it's more likely to sell the asset and get money up front as opposed to having to deal with all the regulatory and global economic problems. You just sell the asset and then you got your money and you're free of that.
And I think that's where there's the shift of people that are interested potentially in, so an acquisition is simpler, to be honest with you, than licensing and things. So I think it's affected that probably in a very good way for us, to be honest with you, us as an investment group.
And we brought on Yalco, that Chinese group, so specifically for that. They've done international deals. They're familiar with those laws, and we do have a great legal coverage as well. All those things will have to play into that decision, but it's a great, we're thinking along those lines right now.
It's a good question.
I was on the board call, so I know at least kind of the direction of your answer on this, but I'm curious now, in light of the changes that happened since that call, what do the numbers kind of look like? I mean, first off, you're doing a discounted value now for us to be able to get in on that. What does that mean? Like, where do you think the company is valued right now, and where would we be getting in at? And what's kind of the range? I know it's impossible to answer completely. What's kind of the range you see if something were to happen by the end of the year, early next year, that it could potentially do?
So let's start with the easy answer, and that is the valuation you're getting right now where we are. This is not us saying it. This is coming from comms of other companies that's similar to us. This is coming from Jefferies, JP Morgan, Cantor, people we talk to all the time. We're probably valued at this stage for around 65 to 100 pre-money, and so post-money, whatever you get, it would be you're getting in at 30 million. Okay, so you're basically getting 2-for-1 shares right now. So for every dollar you get 2 shares. With an acquisition, or it's going to depend on several factors. The first is going to be how many people are in play. If I have 2 or 3 very large global pharmas bidding against each other, it's going to be very difficult to tell you what the number is going to be. We can tell you the base case of the absolute worst possible scenario, one bidder, worst kind of value, what, 180, 200, so?
Yeah, plus some royalties.
Yeah. So, and the ups.
Starting at 30 to 200.
Yeah. But that would be like all in, and that would not necessarily come all in one chunk. It would just be that's the value of what we would say base.
And you guys all know this because you invest in other things, but what that is that yeah, we can give you the best case scenario, but I prefer to tell you like what's the worst case scenario that you're going to get, right? So that's where we had, some people say, oh, but what's in? It's like, well, that's if there's multiple factors, multiple bids in play. Our data, like many suggest much higher, and we can happily give you what some people say, and it has the B word in it, but we wanted to give you like the absolute worst case, worst discount, worst everything, that, and if it drags out, this is what it will do. So I don't know if that's answered your question, because everyone wants to hear this, and it's like, Well, I want to hear what's the worst thing that'll
Well,
happen.
actually, the worst case thing, you got your dollars, we get to the end of this week, nothing. And then we gotta keep running, run away and keep going. So that's where the discounts come in, because that's what you're getting your money for, right? The upside is, I can tell you that our banks believe this as a lead from other things they've done. And
The guys that are doing the pharma partnering, and again, they, like us, are invested in that because they're the banks that get a commission and a rate to get it as high as they can.
and we don't pay them, they're commission only. They get only what they kill, so they're incentivized to get those deals. These are guys who run Squawk Box and CNBC, literally. We see them, we talk to them. But we've hired that bank specifically for this reason.
Mark?
So what's your biggest risk technology-wise? In other words, you've got a study with 34 patients. Are they waiting for a 100-patient study and then it doesn't go as well, or?
So this is where our strategy is then to hand this over to a partner and de-risk that, right? We've accomplished what we needed to in the first trial. We're at the inflection point where we could do the phase 2 trial. We believe the probability of success, given what we know about the asset and what the endpoints are, we think it'll be a relatively good chance of getting a success, but that's putting 3 to 4 more years of time. You're putting another $40–50 million into that. We believe this is a time now that we can partner it out, let someone take that risk, and we get landmark payments on success in that.
But I think the big thing, again, we're not, it's a clinical study and a drug product that's not approved. And so I think what you're asking is what's the biggest risk? The biggest risk for clinical development is, the first one is getting it from the Petri dish to healthy volunteers, and then actually in the patient population are those huge things where people drop like flies, like products and good ideas and things like that. So our phase 1B was in the disease population, so patients that had chronic hepatitis B, and always the primary endpoint and the primary thing for all of us is safety and tolerability. So we've cleared that hurdle already. Of course, it's still a risk in future, and we all know about really good promising phase 3s that have had an adverse event and they're paused or halted. So that's always the biggest hurdle, I think, from what you were saying from a clinical, and isn't just us, that's the common. But we've de-risked because, and I think Dan had said this, is like we're actually at a different point. So our patient population that we did at 1B was intentional because it's more robust or larger than typical, and we did it in multi-countries. And that was also so we had a diverse enough population and a large enough that's why the big pharma companies are looking at us and considering acquisition. So we've de-risked that. So I don't know if I think that answers.
Here's my question. Can you speak more on how this could affect cancer patient as far as treatment, and then also, you're mostly speaking about Therapeutics, but with being part aspect of it, could it also be effective for Hashimoto's or lupus?
Like autoimmune diseases. Yeah, so let's start with the cancer. Let's start with the cancer part. So the mechanism, this is all platform technology. We can apply to multiple indications. We have the patents, we have the license, all those things. Okay, so this is our proprietary technology. We're the only ones developing it. Right? The problem that happens with immune exhaustion in a chronic infection is the same problem that happens in a chronic infection in oncology. The difference is in oncology is a much more complicated model because you've got the tumor and you've got what's all happening inside the tumor. I can tell you in animal studies across multiple different tumor types, with our technology using specific targets for each of those different cancer types, it works incredibly well. Now, the problem we have as a company is we've been so cash-strapped, we've been focused solely on the hepatitis program. So all the value right now is in the hepatitis program. So if we were to sell the company, the value of the oncology program is not very high because we haven't gotten to the phase 1 study with that yet. But the point of it, we did the license where we can take the monies non-dilutively and develop the oncology program. We're what, a year away soon from hitting those major inflection points. So this is all decisions that we have to make if there's that kind of money that you're going to get and how's it going to work. Again, we can get to the end as you guys said. We just be holding our hands and having fun in phase 2 again. Which for you, the risk is, and you've got longer runway, you're going to have to wait longer. And for us, it's we've got to raise more money.
And to answer the other one, so for Virion 200, the Hep B one, so you actually did, absolutely, you're correct, is someone that has chronic Hep B has a much, much higher risk of getting liver cancer. and death. With V10200, even the reduction in what we're seeing in the patients already, you're lowering the S antigen levels in someone. And in fact, the reduction, the actual reduction, not us saying it, but the studies are 4.6 times lower risk of liver cancer for that person that has chronic hepatitis B.
With one shot.
Or just one shot. So that's not, cured, but I'm telling you, my mom's got liver, if you have a family member with liver cancer, it absolutely is, and there's meta-analyses and studies and data out there. So it absolutely reduces the risk by 4.6.
And no, and to prove all that, like to really prove all that, it's going to cost a lot of money, and that is not our goal. Our goal is to do what we're doing right now, and as we hit the inflection.
You don't have to prove that.
Yeah.
Low S means 4.6 times less.
Pharma partner, big pockets, you want to have an indication, here's a pathway you can do, and if we're right and we do the deal structure the right way, we get landmark payments and royalties.
And on your point, with regard to autoimmune diseases, absolutely, like that dysregulation of your immune system, that's another area, and it's funny because we were talking to someone about that. I was talking to someone just a week ago from some major facilities and institutes, because they're interested in that as well.
It's a little different model, because what we're doing is we're blocking a target to get T cell responses to go up, where if you want to actually have that effect, you have to enhance that target to get the T cells to go down. So we talked about, when we started the company, we talked about doing both sides, but we didn't have the ability to do that.
And proof of concept, you do it in one patient population and then you expand. It's no different than other drug developments or platforms. Great question.
Sure. We just touched on it. What is the mechanism? And I know it's a big question, but real simply, what is the mechanism?
When you generate an immune response to a target, that signal, when you do that, there's a number of things that regulate that signal. Some of them amplify it, some of them dampen it. The reason why you want to dampen something, you always want to amplify it, right? If you overstimulate something, you'll destroy tissue. You'll also burn out the immune system, it won't be able to respond. So it regulates itself. Now, in a cancer or a chronic disease, you want to have it upregulate, you don't want it downregulate. We block the thing that inhibits the inhibitory signal of that regulation and let the upside go. That make sense? Thanks, guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you.